Meta is now one of the main targets to Russian cyber scams as the invasion on Ukraine continues. Meta has taken down thousands of fake accounts after Russian-backed hackers broke into Facebook accounts of Ukrainian military officials and posted videos calling on the Ukrainian army to surrender. Joining me now to discuss is Robert Kolasky, Senior Vice President for Critical Infrastructure at Exiger. Robert, Meta's global threat intelligence led for influence operations, said when it comes to persistent threat actors, we've seen a further spike in activity by Ghostwriter. What's Ghostwriter?
Yeah, Ghostwriter, great to be with you. Ghostwriter is a affiliated organization that has been affiliated with the Belarusian government. So it's an organization of hackers and the like who are working on behalf of the Russian aims right now and have been active in the Ukrainian battlefield. Along, the things that Meta was talking about were using access to credentials to get in and conduct inauthentic behavior using Facebook and other things to try to undermine the Ukrainian government and the Ukrainian military.
So Meta just released a new global threat report on cybersecurity. What was in there?
So I think there were two things, right? First of all, it's noteworthy that Meta did this. They're starting, and it's what we're seeing a lot out of private industry and some of these organizations. We're publishing what we're seeing in cyberspace. So that's great. So we have more information about the risk. And what I think Meta found in these two reports, in this report, is two areas. One, more activity in the Ukraine area, that at this point, cyber operations and information operations are fully integrated into the Russian war plan. The second is, Ukraine aside, there's still a lot of other inauthentic behavior going on in social media and other cyber things to worry about. So it's a little bit of both. You got to worry about what's going on in Ukraine, but you also have to worry about other threat actors.
So also, Facebook says it's taking action against these campaigns of disinformation and these scammers. What are they doing, and how much progress have they made?
I think at the core, what Facebook is doing and what they're trying to be aggressive in doing is going after users who violate their terms of service. I mean, that's sort of the table stakes for social media companies. You have to follow the rules that the organization itself has set up. And so when Facebook sees users using false credentials to do inauthentic behavior, they will act, hopefully, and certainly while I was in the government, we were arguing, act aggressively to take that activity down quickly before it has lasting impact. And I think, at least from Facebook's perspective, that's some of what they were able to do. While the Ghostwriter activity was worrisome, it did not have influence on the average Ukrainian citizen.
So what does this organization want? What's the goal for them?
I mean, in this case, this is a classic disinformation operation, right? They're using cyber means to promote confusion, sow confusion, push Russian narratives here, and try to convince Ukrainian people to have less faith in the military that's defending them and in their government, and sow confusion, which will only help them in the middle of what is a hybrid war. So
my question now is, how big of an impact can these cyber attacks have on warfare?
I think it can, over time, it certainly shapes the battlefield. I think, we're dealing with a lot of conventional weapons, but cyber, again, will hurt communications networks. It will hurt kind of how civilians are able to survive through war. And so it does add a complexity that's pretty worrisome. And, it adds an element of which we have to have another defense vector. And I think, the Ukrainian government's been pretty active and pretty effective at limiting the consequences of widespread cyber attacks and critical infrastructure in Ukraine, but it's something that they need to remain vigilant to.
So how can Russian cyber attacks impact people here in the U.S.?
The mantra we use is shields up here in the United States. At this point, the Russians have capability should they decide to cause some harm to U.S. infrastructure. We have not seen them deploy that capability, but the network defender community, for the average person who's out there who takes advantage of digitalization, you have to be prepared that might happen, and the network defenders have to be at their highest level vigilance.
All right. Robert Kolasky, Senior Vice President for Critical Infrastructure at Exiger. Thank you again, Robert, for coming on the show and sharing your expertise with us. Now, more to come.